Well, what do we have here? Let's talk today about some more Edmonton Oilers trade ideas, as tossed out there by David Staples on the Edmonton Journal website. Now, our article that we're going to be looking at is from December 26th. It talks about the next Sam Gagner. The Oilers might want the return of another old Oiler, but who fits best? Now, this article is interesting because it goes over a few names that could be highlighted as potential Oilers targets, guys that played for the Oilers in the past and guys that could potentially make an impact if the Oilers were to go out there and acquire them again. But the interesting thing about the piece is that when it was posted on Twitter, there was a pretty good discussion talked about that expanded more so upon whom David Staple wants in this situation. Now, before we get into all of that, let's just go through what the article has to say first. Of course, it starts out by talking about Sam Gagner. The next Sam Gagner, Edmonton might want the return of another old Oiler, but who fits best? Gagner has played some of his best hockey in his third stint with the Oilers, and with that in mind, could the team get more of the same from another former Oiler? This post started out with me doing something I enjoy doing every now and then, going over all the Edmonton Oilers on Hockey Database and digging up where Oilers players have ended up. Now, I don't know if that's supposed to say Oilers or Old Oilers. Yeah, it's tough. On the list below, you'll see some Oilers who are still active this year and how they're doing when it comes to putting up points in 23-24. You could see that some of the top guys include Ryan Spooner, who is doing well in the KHL. Ty Ratty is doing well in the Swedish Hockey League. Dominic Cahoon is in the Swiss League. Cooper Marody is in the AHL. A bunch of these guys are out here. But when it comes to the top guys in the NHL, you've got guys like Andrew Cogliano, Jeff Petrie, doing pretty alright. But the top guys right here are listed as Jordan Eberle and David Perron. Now, Jordan Eberle in this season's worth of play has 16 points in 31 Seattle Kraken games. Meanwhile, David Perron has 13 points in 28 Detroit Red Wings games. Because of this, the article goes out there and talks about the guys that are right here. Now, don't get me wrong, it talks about all the European players as well, but it does go out there and have a pretty good analysis as to which one of these North American Oilers could still be intriguing. The Euro players are out of the NHL for this season, but there are a number of former Oilers still in the NHL or AHL. I don't see Colorado moving on from Andrew Cogliano, who is still a useful energy player, but there are one or two interesting names here. The issues will be availability, Edmonton's limited cap space, acquisition cost, and whether or not the player wants to play here. Firstly, David Perron, 35 now, has played 1,083 games, including 116 over 2 years for the Oilers. He scored a career-high 28 goals here in 2013-14. He's now a third-line winger in Detroit, but if that team is looking to move him at a deadline, would he not make sense here? He's playing out his contract, which pays him $4.75 million this year, and of course, Detroit is as much in the playoff hunt right now as the Oilers. Now pause, before we go over into the other conversation, I wanted to have a talk about David Perron, because Perron, I'm pretty sure he's still out, he's not playing yet because of the suspension he was handed out due to the Artem Zub thing. But David Perron, for all of the lack of scoring that he'll provide once in a while, he's been a very solid pickup for the Red Wings, and I think a lot of people are starting to notice that during his departure from the team with this suspension. Perron adds a level of energy that the Wings don't have when he's not in the lineup. Sure, he had 56 points last year in 82 games played. This season he's only on pace for around 30, but what Perron does well is give this team a spark, and even though he is only a third-line winger, he's only a guy that is only going to contribute offensively once in a while. He goes really cold, and he has been doing that a lot this season. Even if he's on the first power play, the guy doesn't score as much as you probably would like him to. This is a player that is important to the Wings, and if you were to say the Red Wings would want to trade him away, it would have to be because Steve Yzerman doesn't see any playoff aspirations within the span of Perron in his contract. Back when he was signed by Detroit all those years ago, he said it was a really good deal, and he had a really great first season, but now the Wings are still in a quote-unquote rebuild, according to Stevie Y, and if they wanted to make it so that they are not really focused on making the playoffs right now, if they still want to go down that retooling, rebuilding path, then trading Perron away would be a pretty good indicator of that. He's a good player, And the Oilers, while not necessarily getting a bunch of scoring or consistent offensive production out of Perron, would get a really good spark of energy. That's a good thing. And ultimately, it's tough to put a price tag on that because so many different people will evaluate things differently, right? Like, who knows how much a grinder energy player who can hit guys and cross-check players when they're not looking, who knows how much that's worth on the market, especially one who'd scored 50 points last year who was on pace for a lot fewer. So, if you're a Red Wings fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of David Perron heading back over to the Edmonton Oilers and whether or not you'd think that's appropriate. Now, the other name I wanted to talk about in this conversation is highlighted in one of the other points here. Jordan Eberle was an Oiler from 2010 to 2017. 33, he's having an off year in Seattle, but he's playing out his contract. It pays him $5.5 million this year, and it's a high cost, which makes him an unlikely fit. Now, for Jordan Eberle, I get it, you could say, wait, there are other names that are talked about in this article. Why are you focusing on Jordan Eberle specifically? Well, it's because this provides us a good opportunity to talk about the Seattle Kraken and what's been going on over there. Jordan Eberle is also going through a really big slump. Last year, the guy had 63 points in 82 games played, including just under a point per game in the postseason. This season, he's at half a point a game, on pace for around 39 points in 78 games played, so a really big decline there. Now, the thing is, the Seattle Kraken have been pretty much lackluster everywhere compared to last year. A lot of the roster is the same. There wasn't too much turnover. They didn't acquire too many new guys. They didn't lose too many extra guys. It's just a matter of mojo and luck that's forcing Seattle down there at the bottom of the Pacific right now. And that includes the point totals of a lot of these players. Jordan Eberle is a good player. We all recognize that. I mean, 60 points last year was no fluke. This season, though, if you wanted to say that there's more to unlock there, maybe getting sent over to Edmonton and playing with a Connor McDavid could help unlock that once again. Now, Staple does go out there and say the cost is high. $5.5 million a season is not cheap, especially for an Oilers team that is already kind of strapped to the cap. But the interesting thing about this idea, circled around Perron and Eberle, was that when you see the tweet that was made by David Staple talking about this article, you did have some replies going out there wherein Staple actually responded. Take a look at this reply by Joseph K90. I can see Jordan Eberle. Seattle can eat half his deal, and the Oilers can make a move to free up cap space. He can slide in and play with Leon. He scores goals and can set them up. Staples says, yeah, it's a real possibility. However, I would prefer David Perron. I think the Wings will make the playoffs, so I don't think he'll be an option. But between him and Eberle, I think one will be an Oiler again on deadline week. So, no real trade update here, it's just kind of an idea tossed around. Whether or not these two could be focal points in the Edmonton Oilers forward acquisition experiment. Sure, there are other names that are tossed around there, even Jeff Petry's name is mentioned in the article. Of course, link is in the description if you want to go ahead and read that yourself. But when it comes to either of these two guys, I do see them in pretty similar boats, but if I had to choose one in terms of value to value, I'd say that David Perron has a little bit more of a guarantee of being effective. I'd say that Jordan Eberle has a bit more of an offensive ceiling at this point in his career, but because there's a little bit of uncertainty there, because Perron makes fewer dollars, and because Perron adds another element of physicality and snarl, nastiness, I think for the Oilers it would make a lot more sense. I agree with Staple here, actually, that it'd be David Perron as the main guy if they were to go out there and explore for a forward. That is, of course, if the Wings would make Perron available, which in itself is another conversation that we don't know the answers to. So for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, what are your thoughts on the idea of Jordan Eberle or David Perron being a target for your squad? If you're a Seattle or a Detroit fan, what are your thoughts on these ideas, and do you think your guys should be tossed out to Edmonton for the Wolves? What do you want in return? Is it a draft pick? Is it a prospect? Is it another player in return? Do you want to retain salary? You kind of have to. I mean, it's 1 year left on these contracts anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below either way about Eberle and or Perron. I hope you enjoyed this Recherche 99, and bye.